Good morning on behalf of the Ottawa Business Journal and the Ottawa Board of Trade. Welcome to the Ottawa Business Summit, and equally important, welcome to Small Business Week. I'm Michael Curran from the Ottawa Business Journal. 18 months into this pandemic, I think it's fair to say the challenges faced by small businesses has never been greater. But it's not all doom and gloom. The opportunities, I think, are everywhere. And we're here this morning to consider those challenges and highlight those opportunities. And to do so, I'm joined by Sueling Ching, the President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Good morning, Sueling.
Good morning, Michael.
It's a big week, small business.
It's a big week, Small Business Week, and we're so happy to be hosting this virtual conference during this important week. Yes, I agree. This pandemic has really shone a light on how important small businesses are to our economy, to the culture of our communities. And so we're really happy to be here today to talk about a time that maybe has given more challenges to small businesses, but in many ways, more opportunities as well. So we're excited to meet with some fantastic experts and business people to talk about that.
And before, Sueling, we take a look at today's agenda, I wanted to focus a little bit on the Ottawa Board of Trade, because I think it's fair to say that literally in recent decades, the Ottawa Board of Trade has never been called upon to represent its members and the general business community more. So, 18 to 19 months into this pandemic, what are you thinking these days when it comes to small business?
Well, I agree with you, Michael. I always used to say, you better hope nothing big ever happens and you don't have a strong voice of business in your community. Yep. And this has been a living experiment these last 20 months. And I think, one thing is for sure, we will never separate again public health, mental well-being, and economic growth. That those three things are completely intertwined. And this last 20 months has given us an opportunity to reveal, if you will, a lot of fault lines in our own businesses, in our governments, and in our systems. And that provides an opportunity for us to do it better going forward. So we have proven what we can accomplish by working together. I call it radical collaboration. People have demonstrated their resiliency. We have demonstrated a great ability to innovate in order to solve problems. So I think that we use those lessons in order to commit to progress over perfection and tackle the big issues like the environment and equity, diversity, and inclusion, as we pursue economic growth moving forward.
Those are some great thoughts, Sueling, to get us started. And of course, we've got a great show planned for everyone today. We're broadcasting across YouTube channel on both the OBJ side, the Board of Trade side. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn on the OBJ side. So we've got a great show planned. We've divided things up into 3 sessions. First, and you're going to kick us off in about a couple minutes here. We're very pleased, very, very pleased to have Isabel Udon, the President and CEO of BDC. She will have a fireside chat with Sueling Ching. That's really exciting. Also, I'm looking forward to session 2. I'm playing a bigger role there when we're going to have a session called The Growth Secrets from the 40 Under 40. And we have 3 past recipients that will share some of those secrets. Each of them will focus on one specific idea. And in session 3, Sueling, you're back on screen.
Yes, that's right. So I'm really excited to be meeting with the president of a local business, the Business Sherpa Group. And it's called Conversations with SMEs. And of course, they have a huge client base of SMEs. They're based in Ottawa, but of course, all over Canada and the United States. And we're going to talk about what they've seen in terms of trends in our community.
Yeah, I always love that name, Business Sherpa Group. That's a great brand. And listen, before we move into our introductions of Isabel Udon, I want to recognize our event partners, which make today possible. So it's really important to have great partners behind us. And we have none other than BDC, which is organizing, of course, Small Business Week across Canada. Big thanks to them for what they're doing today and what they're doing across cities and communities across Canada. And our global event partner for 2021 is Oakwood Designers and Builders. So our sincere thanks to both of those partners for helping us with this virtual conference. So we've been talking about the introductions. Let's get down to business here. I'd like to introduce now the Vice President of Eastern and Northern Ontario at BDC, Kunlei Tauwe, to say a few words and introduce our keynote speaker. Please welcome Kunlei Tauwe. Hello, Kunlei.
Hi, Michael. Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
Well, thank you for having me this
I
morning.
want to thank you for your leadership and everything that BDC is doing. Please go ahead, Kunlei, and introduce Isabelle for us.
Thank you very much, Michael. Good morning. On behalf of BDC and our local teams, I'm truly delighted to welcome everyone this morning. We're very proud to be sponsoring today's event as part of this year's BDC Small Business Week. For more than 40 years, we've hosted Small Business Week, a week dedicated to celebrating the spirit of resiliency of Canadian entrepreneurs, celebrating you and everything that you do. A celebration that is more unique and important than ever this year. The past 18 months, as you all know, have been difficult, and it's clear the pandemic has accelerated long-term disruptions. From growing labor shortages and the rise of remote work, to the expansion of digital business and increasingly frequent climate events, things won't ever fully go back to the way they were before. Still, there are opportunities that lie ahead of Canadian entrepreneurs. That is why this year's theme for Small Business Week is focused on seizing the opportunity to build the way forward. These are unprecedented times, to be sure, but they also offer an unprecedented opportunity for change. We have a chance to rebuild in a more intelligent way, to prioritize sustainability, diversity, and innovation as we move forward together. As the Bank for Canadian Entrepreneurs, BDC is proud to be an active partner in the Ottawa business community, and we look forward to continue to work with entrepreneurs and local partners like yourselves who are making outstanding contributions to our region. Now, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce Isabelle Hudon, BDC's first woman president and CEO, something we're really proud of at the BDC. Isabelle brings a deep business background and a clear vision for an inclusive economy to support growth for Canadian entrepreneurs. She's a champion of diversity, gender equality, and the green economy, leading BDC's 2,500 person team to help Canadian entrepreneurs grow resilient, sustainable businesses. From 2017 to 2021, Isabelle served as Canada's ambassador to France and Monaco and was the personal representative of the Prime Minister of Canada for La Francophonie. Previously, Isabelle was the President and CEO of Quebec and Senior Vice President of Sun Life Financial Canada, overseeing growth across all business lines. She has held seats on numerous boards of directors and is co-founder of the A Effect program to empower ambitious women. Please join me as we welcome Isabelle Hudon, President and CEO of BDC, and Sueling Ching, the President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade, for their fireside chat this morning. Take it away, Sueling.
Thank you, Kunlei. Thank you very much for being here. And to echo Michael's comments, we really appreciate your leadership in the Ottawa business community. Welcome, Isabelle. Thank you for being here. I loved how he says the first woman president.
Thank you. Thanks to my colleague Kunlei. I'm a very proud leader of BDC. And yes, I'm the first woman. And yes, it's worth mentioning. And so I'm happy to be in this new leadership role, even if it was an exciting moment in Paris for 4 years. I'm as excited to lead BDC.
Well, I would like to start by expressing my appreciation for your taking this on. It's such an important time in our economy and our history, and I think it is worth mentioning and shouting from the from the hilltops as well. So it's a time in history. So you have just returned to Canada after 4 years as the ambassador to France and Monaco. So what brought you to BDC? And then, having lived on both sides of the Atlantic during this pandemic, can you share your views on your two perspectives?
So what brought me to BDC, I knew right away when I decided to accept the role of ambassador 4 years ago that I would do this once, as I'm not a career diplomat. I started to think about what would be next for me about a year ago. And one thing, Sueling, is I wanted to come back into the business environment. But you know what I saw over the last year in France through the pandemic, seeing French leaders wanting to contribute to make sure that France would get out of the pandemic as a stronger country, I was inspired to still and keep serving my country. So when the BDC opportunity came my way, I thought it was the best, coming back into the business reality, but still serving my country. So nothing happens for nothing. It was the right opportunity at the right moment, and also leading a Canadian organization as BDC is a true honor. It's a performant and highly relevant organization for Canadian SMEs. What I saw on the other side of the Atlantic is very similar, Sueling, to what we're going through, with the only exception that the pandemic hit France probably 6 to 8 weeks prior to Canada. So I was able to predict to my family, to my friends, what would happen in Canada. One thing is sure is the government in France answered to the pandemic exactly like the Canadian government answered. Massive financial help for companies and for individuals also. But the difference that I saw in France, Sueling, is that right at the beginning of the pandemic, France had decided to announce specific programs for specific sectors. That's one difference than in Canada, where Canada is now starting to decide on which sector they will support more than others. But in France, it was right at the get-go. And two of those sectors were tourism and aviation.
Okay. Because they could see right away that those were going to be hardest hit.
And it's more in their habits to pick few sectors, whereby in Canada, we're a little bit less into that way of working, but aerospace and tourism, like tourism, Sueling. Let's put numbers here in perspective. France has 70 million of population, so the double of Canada on a very smaller piece of land. And on a yearly basis, Sueling, they do welcome 45 million to 50 million of tourism, and half of them visiting Paris. So when it all stopped, you can imagine how hard it was on the economy.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. So during the pandemic, what were your aha moments?
My aha moment was linked to my big anxiety. As much as we were very carefully managing and protecting our employees for their physical health, my main concern, Sueling, and you've mentioned this right at the get-go, was a mental health of my employees. And I've deployed a lot of energy to create opportunities so that we stay connected even into the virtual world. And I had aha moments on how employees responded to this. welcomed also creative ways to stay connected. And it made me feel great as an employer, as a leader, and as a person to see that we were able to create connection, and also that we were able to talk openly about mental health and how it is as important to take care of our physical health, but also mental health.
I appreciate you saying that. Our chamber network in Ontario has just released a new mental wellness playbook for employers and for SMEs. And it's something that I'm sure as a business leader, you've always known, but now we are able to talk about it a little bit differently. And it's one of those opportunities that are coming out of this that we'll be able to take advantage of.
I've got asked last week, Sueling, like, what is one of the key learning out of the last 18 months? And again, communication, like
100%.
how we needed to stay connected, and even in the unknown, and even not knowing all details and specific details, the importance to communicate with not only your loved ones, but your colleagues.
Yes, absolutely. So we are still dealing with COVID, but many things have really changed since this time last year. And there's a feeling that nothing will be the same moving forward, that we have a new normal to embrace. What are the big changes of this new reality that we live in, and how are those impacting business owners?
Well, I would say that the new rules around how we work, and it's the hybrid model between working from home and physical presence at the office. We were pretty good pre-pandemic to manage this. Everyone was coming at the office. Well, teleworking was a reality, but not that much Sueling. We still had to deal with stigma around teleworking, where when you don't see your employees, you're not too sure that they will deliver performance. Well, the pandemic hit and made all the impossible possible because we had no choice to reinvent ourselves. Then we became very good, Sueling, at managing everyone in the virtual world. Well, it's not going to be easy. And it is not easy to manage the hybrid model right now. And we will have to develop new skills around managing employees, both in the virtual world and in physical presence at the office. So that's one of the challenge that will be, and that is in front of us, especially for SMEs, because technology will be a key and digital will be a key here to make sure that we connect everyone all together and all employees. The second, but probably the most important challenge is labor and labor shortage. We're back over, I think that mid-September, we came back to pre-pandemic labor numbers, whereby we're at now, 5% of all Canadian without a job. So that is full employment from an economic perspective. So shortage of labor, and we've surveyed our members and our clients, and I should say more our clients. Members is more in your reality, but we've surveyed our clients at BDC, and it's the top challenge on all SMEs entrepreneurs top of mind. So we'll have to figure out how to be creative and how to reorganize the work, and probably, again, Sueling, bring more technology into our day-to-day operations.
I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate the report that you recently released on this very issue. It's the number one thing we're hearing, and it's important for us to understand what the underlying reasons are in order to develop our solutions. So we appreciate the research that you've done on that. on that
Well,
front. For sure.
I'm very impressed, Sueling. When I joined the organization a few months ago, of course, I met my colleagues and dig into what we do good and very good. And one thing that I'm impressed is the depth of knowledge around reality of SMEs, and that because we are directly connected to entrepreneurs. And you know very well that entrepreneurs, they do give you and serve you the truth. And so it's quite impressive, the level of understanding that we have internally at BDC. And it's because we've decided a number of years ago to get connected on entrepreneurs' reality and to stay connected and to reach out and ask for their point of views. Even if we're able to see international trends and economic trends, there's nothing like being connected to the real world and on the ground and to feel well, both the challenges, but also to get to better understand the opportunities.
I agree with you 100%. And we're very fortunate that you have been so committed to doing that sort of work because, you know, throughout this last 18, 19 months, we have identified that, you know, we need relevant, timely data in order to make good decisions. And it's something that we don't have on all fronts. So we really appreciate that you've been committed to that all along, and we'll continue to use you as a resource for decision-making for sure.
Please do so. As you said right at the beginning of the event, it is through the pandemic, radical collaboration was a key. And you know what? It's a feel-good moment when you see that competition is good, but can be put aside to get all together and work and walk in the same direction. I think that even if the pandemic was and is still very hard on all of us, we have to learn and to remember very positive key learnings out of that pandemic, like the impossible is possible when you have no other choices.
That's exactly right. And competition certainly is the mother of innovation, right, and growth. But we have to create a strong foundation and an environment in which businesses can do that. And that will be done through collaboration.
Exactly.
Right, for sure. So the themes for the 2021 BDC Small Business Week are innovation, inclusion, and sustainability. I love that. What makes those so important for Canadian businesses, especially given the disruption of this last year?
Well, first of all, as I said, because everything stopped and that we had no choice and that it was around the globe, I say that the planet invited us to reinvent ourselves with no choice to join or not.
Right.
So climate became non-negotiable for everyone to realize that we need to move in a more ambitious way and to do more and faster on climate. And I do believe, Sueling, that we will not see another opportunity with everyone being so ready to do radical changes in how we live. And I do think that it's our responsibility at BDC, and probably you will agree with me, and the same for your organization, it is our responsibility to be there and to help and to bring new products and to bring more help, and not only from a financial perspective, but better advice to SMEs, to be there with them to go through the climate transition and to move faster into that corridor of doing things differently. So climate is top of mind, and there's that huge opportunity that we have to seize and make it real. Now, the other thing also is we have seen through the pandemic, Sueling, that thinking differently is good.
Yes.
And bringing creative ideas to survive is key.
Right.
And I do believe that that's what inclusion brings. Having different people around the table to think about one challenges, but in a different manners is the key here. We have to make sure that we bring different people around one problem and to dig into solutions. So diversity is one thing. Parity is a similar challenge, but a different challenge, because I say that parity is all about giving half of the population the same opportunities, the same chances, the same rights that and that half is woman, to give women the same as the other half of the planet, being man, have. Diversity is about giving a stronger voice, and a very strong voice and visibility to minorities. And both challenges are alike and similar, but different. But when we address both, that's when we can talk about inclusion and bringing all those people around the table to think about the future and not to repeat what did not work from the past.
And that's another one of those foundational opportunities that we can look at other things from and grow from. I appreciate what you're saying about the issue of the environment. It's never been more topical, but and then this is the perfect opportunity. But the other thing is that because it is a crisis, it's almost our last opportunity, right, to get it right. And so I saw at the beginning of the pandemic something on social media that said, did the environment just send us all to our rooms for behaving badly? And it was a wake-up call.
I agree, Sue. I agree. I remember 18 months ago, I was in Paris and I said, you know what? Like, we did so poorly that the planet is now forcing us to do things differently.
That's right.
And we did not try hard enough. And we can realize right now, only after 12 months, how we think differently, how we invest differently, and how we want to do things differently. It's sad to see, but again, there's many opportunities in front of us, and let's grab those opportunities, and also let's grab the speed that is forced on us, and let's not fight against this.
Right. Yes, because we are capable.
Right.
So you talk a lot about how we can move from crisis to opportunity, and that's fantastic. What can business owners do? Where do you see the biggest opportunities for them and the biggest challenges?
Well, I think that one challenge that all companies and organizations have, small, medium, or large, is the digital reality. Even if labor shortage is one top priority for all organizations, we need to keep on investing in digital tools. There is no way that we will go back to the world before pandemic. And to stay connected with clients, to grow your clientele, to grow your company, and to also afford to stay connected with all your employees, there's massive investment in digital that needs to get done and to be done in Canada. And BDC will be there to support entrepreneurs that wish to do so. And we will be there not only with money, Sueling, but also with advisory services where we will help our entrepreneurs to understand how they can do better and more with more digital tools, and both to get better at managing their employees and offering an employee experience, an extraordinary employee experience, to be able to deliver on an as extraordinary experience for clients. So I do think that it's one thing And when we do compare Canada to other countries, with some other countries, we're not doing so bad. But when we compare to other countries, we lag a little bit on the number of dollars that we invest in digital. So I'm not here to put additional pressure on SMEs, but still, I do think that we need to do better on that front, and that we have the tools and the knowledge also to do that. When we look at different leaders, digital leaders that we're able to attract in Canada, I think that it should inspire us to do more on that front.
I agree with you. And can I say, I know that you did a lot of work even pre-pandemic around the digital age and how we needed to bring businesses up to snuff so that we could compete in the global marketplace. And so that is another thing that has happened over this last 20 months, is that we have been able to scale some businesses in that way, but we need to continue to invest. And through the pandemic, I know that through you and the government that we have been able to support a lot of businesses. I just want to quickly mention, if I could, that we're really grateful. You had mentioned the financing and the advisory services.
Right.
We really appreciate the advisory services, because what we've seen through this pandemic is a lot of SMEs didn't have the technical expertise to do some of the things that they had to do in order to pivot, particularly as it related to workforce development, re-looking at their finances. And so that's an important service that I'd like to make sure everyone understands that you offer.
Well, BDC, I'm not too sure that it's well understood across the country what BDC is doing and what we can do more and better for entrepreneurs. But BDC has a division called BDC Capital. That's the venture capital. Within services deployed to SMEs, we do financing and advisory services. Because we found out a few years ago, and many years ago, I should say, that financing is one thing, but without being there alongside to entrepreneurs and SMEs, the financing has not the same impact on the growth of the company that if we do both. And it's interesting because I saw a few numbers, Sueling, that we compared companies that we supported through financing only and companies that we've supported both with financing and advisory services. And it's incredible how the growth of the company that we do support both with service, advisory and financing. So it's to say that we need to do a better job at promoting both financing and advisory, and also to offer an easy way in for the company. Maybe it does sound heavy. Maybe it does sound, well, we don't have time for that. So it's our job at BDC to create an easy experience to deliver our product and service.
I agree. Thank you. Especially with the pace and scope of change that the small businesses are facing today. I'd like to go back to this idea of inclusion and diversity, if that's okay. And you touched on it briefly, but it's had really a disproportionate effect on certain categories of entrepreneurs, namely women, visible minorities, Indigenous entrepreneurs. So how do we take advantage of this time of opportunity to maintain an inclusive, innovative, and sustainable growth so that no one is left behind?
Well, pre-pandemic, BDC started to identify underserved clientele with which we needed to do better. Woman entrepreneur, Indigenous entrepreneur, and Black communities entrepreneur. And I do think that it's still highly relevant, assuming that we serve those clientele in a different way, and not only more, but better. Those clientele, they don't have the expertise that the average clientele have in the business community. So we have to adapt the way we go to market and try to connect with those entrepreneurs. And also we have to undo some unconscious BA around those entrepreneurs. So those 3 underserved clienteles are top of our priority at BDC. We are now thinking of how we should address those challenges, how we have to adapt our go-to-market approach. And also, we have to give ourselves very ambitious targets for those clientele, because you know very well that as soon as you disclose objectives, well, then you start delivering at the right pace on those objectives. So we need to, I think that it's different kind of challenges that we have with those underserved clienteles. I think that for women entrepreneur, we have to dig a little bit more on understanding what are the triggers that women answer to when they start their business, and what kind of the help they need. I'm pretty sure, Sueling, that women entrepreneurs, they don't react to the same triggers as men entrepreneurs, and that we need to understand on our side. The Indigenous entrepreneur, they are not organized the same way that other clienteles are, and they are not as savvy entrepreneurs. So we have to keep that in mind, so that when we talk to them and when we reach out to those entrepreneurs, we don't scare them, and that we become highly relevant, both with our products, but also services. And it is the same thing with Black communities. We're doing a pilot project with FACE, that is an organization well established within the Black communities, and we're learning how and who they are and how they get organized. And again, what are the triggers for them, and what kind of help they need from financial institutions, not only like BDC, but all financial institutions. And I do think that our narrative is one key element that we have to work on, so that we come and introduce ourselves as potential relevant partners for those entrepreneurs.
Wow, I appreciate that thoughtful approach that you have described. I'd like to hone in a little more on women and ambition. And a few years ago, you launched a movement in Canada to support the ambition of women in the corporate world. We want to see some improvement. I'm curious about really what this pandemic has done, even to, we talk about targets, right? I think we were probably 200 years out from equality, and I wonder where we are these days. But you took concrete action by creating the A Effect. So can you tell us what is the A Effect and why this is important to you?
Yes, and I'll make sure to answer your question on the hit that the pandemic, the additional hit that the pandemic created for women. But let's get back to the A Effect.
Sure.
I'm not one that believes that women are less ambitious than men, but I'm one that believes that we lack confidence when we compare women. We lack confidence when we compare ourselves to men, and there is no reason why we should lack confidence. So the A Effect is a movement that I've launched 7 years ago with the promise that I would do one action a day in favor of seeing more women in influent role and in decision-making roles. And I've approached women saying, listen, we can point fingers to everyone that is not doing enough for the cause, but we ourselves need also to work on our beliefs and feed our confidence and believe that everything's possible. So we're working with women. It's a program on 100 days. It's all virtual. And it talks about behaviors that we need to adapt, or let go around confidence, around negotiations, skills, and risk-taking, and also networking. And it's incredible, Sueling. After 7 years, there's a little bit more than 5,000 women across Canada, now in France and also in Belgium, that are proof that when you get together and talk about this, it's very easy to undo some very bad behaviors and to go for it. So it makes me very proud. It's probably one thing that I'm the most proud of since I've started working, that we've launched this movement. Now back to the effect that the pandemic had and still has on women. Before the pandemic, we were in a corridor of 115 years before getting to parity around the world if we were keeping at the same pace. In only 1 year, we added to the 15 years, 35 additional years. So the corridor is now 150 years to parity. So just to show, like a stat like this, Sueling, shows that how it is very fragile. Every wins that we make on parity, even if it takes us 10 years to get there, we can lose in an instant 10 years of progress. So it's one stat that should make us realize that we need to keep on working on this issue. We need to keep the conversation being a highly public conversation, and we need to bring out there models for younger girls or women to relate to. Because one thing is sure, women are pretty good at replicating what we see. We're not that good at creating models that were never seen before. So we need the conversation to stay public, and we need to bring out there models, and different kind of models that can testify and show to younger girls and women that it's highly possible to aspire to get to different positions, and that even if no one else did it before, that it is possible.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to move on to sustainability, the idea of sustainability. With climate change having such an impact on the quality of our personal and our professional lives, what do businesses need to consider going forward, planning for the future?
Well, I think around sustainability, I think that the best equation is the ESG elements. I think that, quote unquote, it's the easiest way to think about this. And easy is not probably the right word here because it does add priorities. But out of the pandemic, I think that it's a non-negotiable path to take and to adopt. First, to attract talent and to retain talent. I think that employees will put additional pressure on their employer, for employers and organizations to do better on the ESG, so environment, social, and governance topics. Sustainability, of course, we think about environment and climate. And again, as I said a few minutes ago, there's no better moment, and it's not going to come back. The urgency sentiment is there, and we need to do better on that front. And BDC wants to be there, and not only with dollars and investment and financing, but also with advisory services to best advise SMEs how to take that climate corridor and to do better, but also on governance and on social. We just talked about inclusion. It is highly important for all size companies to think about how do they need to get better on the social front, because again, clients and employees will put incredible pressure on all organizations for organization to step up and do better.
So it's no longer a nice to have.
No.
It's a need to do.
Exactly. Well said, Sueling.
100%. So I'm just have one final question for you with our time today. What advice do you have for our business owners today?
My first advice would be, out of the pandemic, focus on the positive key learnings. Of course, I don't want to go around the fact that it was difficult and it's still very difficult what the pandemic brought us to, but there's very key positive learning that we have to focus on and get inspired by all those new way of doing things, and reach out to organizations like BDC, like your Chamber of Commerce, to learn and to get help on that front.
Very good. I concur 100%. And there are tremendous opportunities in front of SMEs. And we just had a keynote speaker from Deloitte last week, and he said this is actually a time for SMEs because there's so much opportunity out there and they have the ability to be nimble where other bigger companies may not. So it's a time of tremendous challenge and change and opportunity. And we're very grateful for your leadership and the work of BDC in supporting our Canadian entrepreneurs. And I very much enjoyed our discussion here today. And I hope that you'll join us again sometime, because I feel like I had maybe 10 more questions for you.
Well, keep those questions for the next conversation. I can tell you that I will be back. If you invite me back, I will be back. And I want to say, Sueling, thank you very much on celebrating and being an active player, celebrating entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship with that. As the Small Business Week makes me very, very proud.
I appreciate that. It's an honor to do so. Enjoy the rest of Small Business Week, and we will see you again soon.
Merci, Sueling.
Merci, Isabelle. It's my pleasure now to welcome back to the stage my co-host, Michael Curran, the publisher of the Ottawa Business Journal.
Great discussion, Sueling. That was
Hi,
excellent.
She's a dynamo, and we are lucky to have her.
Yeah, and we do want her back. So we're gonna have to look at our calendar and book her sometime at 2022. Good luck to her, and she's got such a important role she plays on a national and regional basis. We need organizations like BDC to really strengthen entrepreneurs and fulfill some of that diversity vision that you were talking about.
I agree with you. And if we're able to support, of course, SMEs in doing that, that's what's going to drive our economic growth. So anyway, over to you. And
we'll see you in session 3.
Fantastic.
So listen, I'm really excited. We're going to our second session, and this is Growth Secrets of the 40 Under 40. 40 Under 40, as you likely know, is an awards program produced by OBJ and the Ottawa Board of Trade. Believe it or not, it's going to turn 25 years old in 2022. So we're looking forward to a big celebration. And the 40 Under 40 represent some of the most innovative and successful entrepreneurs in our city. And today we've got 3 of them with us to talk about our growth secrets. Let's bring them on screen one at a time. First off, we have Gareth Davies from Maker House. There's Gareth.
Hey.
How you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, super excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Good, thank you. And next we've got Heather Desjardins from The Open Door.
Hello.
There's Heather. And last but certainly not least, we have Michelle Weger from Venture Creative Collective.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have all 3 of you here. So we're going to really dig in the next 30 minutes or so into this concept of growth. And each of you are going to present a secret. That's what we're calling it. It's a secret, but we're going to tell the secret today. We're not going to keep it secret. But before I go kind of one-on-one with each of you, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourself, and maybe Gareth, we'll start with you. So tell us about yourself, Gareth, and Maker House.
Sounds good. Yeah. So my name's Gareth Davies. I started Maker House 6 years ago, actually, right now, late October. as a pop-up shop with a mission to bring the maker movement to Main Street. So we sell all Canadian-made, locally made goods, from furniture and homewares, expanding into gifts and food and bath and body, from over 200, maybe 250 suppliers, small batch companies across the country. We also, in addition to working with all those local suppliers and kind of connecting their stories to our customers, we raise money through every purchase via our Craft Change program. So through that fund, 2% of our gross revenue goes to community organizations, and we're up over, I think, 130,000 that we've raised in 6 years.
Very cool, Gareth. And just so people know, you're both in a bricks and mortar, as they say, location, and you're virtual as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we've got the store in Hintonburg in Ottawa there at 987 Wellington Street. And we're online at makerhouse.com. And of course, we've been pivoting back and forth. We're pretty settled into the store again, about 80% of sales in store again. And for 7 months, ending in July, it was 100% online, just following the roller coaster.
And we'll move to, yeah, that's right. And we'll move to Heather in a second, but I just want to ask one other question. You were one of those examples of a retailer that had an online presence before the pandemic, right?
Yeah, we launched the website a year and a half after opening that pop-up shop. So we had a few years of getting it up to speed, building that online foundation. It wasn't doing much. It was maybe 5% of our sales. And then overnight, of course, it was 100%. And we had to get the logistics of delivery and everything set up. So
very cool. Well, good for you for having the foresight, Gareth, and looking forward to the future. And we're going to go to Heather now, but just to point out to the viewers and listeners, we have three intentionally very different types of businesses. So we're hoping you can relate to one of them. So Gareth certainly is in the retail and online commerce. And Heather, let's move to you now. Tell us about yourself, Heather, and Open Door.
Yes, so I my background is in education as a teacher, and moved into the area of special education. I saw a huge need in that field, so I actually ended up leaving my job and starting the Open Door Educational Services. So we offer services for families and students with known or suspected learning disabilities like dyslexia. And our services include specialized one-on-one tutoring, small group programming, assessments, and other related services to help this community.
How has it been during the pandemic for you? I was asking Gareth those questions. Schools kind of went virtual. Is that what you did as well, Heather?
Yes, we fortunately already had set up for the online option where we could do the live online tutoring, just so that we could help students who were outside of the Ottawa area if they came to us. And we did have to scramble in a big hurry, though, to get all of our teachers and all of our students up and running online instead of the 5% or so that we had online beforehand. But fortunately, we were able to make that shift and get everyone up and running and continuing to get that help.
And what was that experience like? I'll leave the users aside, although they're key in your business. Just from your perspective, was it an easy transition to make? Could you still have groups of people and do effective teaching, Heather, in an online environment?
Yeah, I would say that it wasn't an easy shift. We had such a wide variety of demographics, from some of our tutors, some of them being not very tech savvy, and so needing a lot of additional help to figure out how to get online and teach effectively. And we had to change our strategies, ways to engage the students if they have attention issues, then really needing to come up with new strategies for that as well. So it was quite a learning curve, but fortunately we were able to do all of those adjustments and be able to carry on.
And I'll go to Michelle in a minute, but just one other thing that's intriguing me, I'm being so curious about all your businesses here. Heather, about how many students were you connecting with through the pandemic? I don't know if you want to say that on a weekly or monthly or annual basis. How many people are you reaching?
Yeah, I mean, we have Right now, we have over about 250 active students who are currently
Wow.
being tutored. And so that translates to well over 1,000 sessions a month.
Okay. That's a lot of activity. Well, good. Thank you for helping all those kids. It's and adults. It's so important. So, Michelle, let's go to you. So, again, we're talking about now, Michelle, your business, Venture Creative Collective, and it's completely different from what Heather and Gareth does. Tell us about yourself and Venture Creative Collective, Michelle.
Yes, it is indeed quite different, although the businesses that we work with and help are ones like Heather and
You got
Gareth.
it.
So I own Venture Creative Collective, which is a website development, e-commerce, and automation company. And what that really means is we help business owners make more sales more often with less work so that they can grow and scale and still have a life.
That's cool. That's really cool. That's a little bit like OBJ. We do the journalism side, but we do some marketing as too. And what has the pandemic been like for you, Michelle? Were you like in a sense? I can think that your clients might have come to you and said, "Michelle, we need to ramp up the digital."
Yeah, so it was very interesting. A lot of our customers, they had websites, but it wasn't their primary driver of sales. And pretty much overnight, that had to change. And so what we did early on is schedule calls with all of our existing clients to give them a bunch of ideas of how they could still operate, even given the situation. And then they've been implementing those over the last almost 2 years now. And what's very cool is some of the businesses that are brick and mortar still have not reopened to this day because their new setup of being online and fulfilling orders at the door is actually more profitable and more enjoyable than what they were doing before.
Wow, that's really neat. And great that you were able to help people. All of you doing some great work during the pandemic. So we're going to go one-on-one in just a second. But before I do that, I just want to talk about this concept of growth because, I think if there's a new entrepreneur out there that's looking or watching us today, they might think, well, you open up and you grow, right? Like it's kind of like that to build it and they will come type thing. But that's, in my experience, that's not the way that the growth happens in our world, at least, and a lot of the businesses I know. It needs to be very planned and regimented, and strategies and executions and all that type of stuff. So I just want to go around the screen again and have each of you just share what growth looks like to you and maybe how it happens. Gareth, maybe you can kick us off with that.
Yeah, sure. So when I wrote my business plan for like the first 5 years, I was like, yeah, we could grow 50% every year. That sounds reasonable. We're starting small. That's not a big number to grow. And what I learned through obviously reality is about 20 to 30% growth every year has been reach for us and sustainable as well. Because when we have seen months or quarters that are at that 40, 50% growth, we are stretched very, very thin. And it destroys our capacity to keep up. So we couldn't sustain that over time, to be honest. And that's just our model. We're very, labor intensive in terms of it's a physical store. We have to touch everything that we sell, from input as inventory to putting it in a bag out the door. It's a little different for digital products, obviously, which scale better. But that's how growth has looked like for us. And we've certainly built it with the strategy in mind that customers will come. And I think the topic we're going to discuss is about kind of just putting yourself in the best place for growth to come to you.
I like that point, Gareth, by the way. So, I hadn't even considered that, but sometimes growth does come quickly and it comes too quickly. So much so that it overwhelms your organization. So I love that. Heather, so if you think about growth at the open door, you're in an educational services type business. What does growth look like and how does it happen?
Yeah. So in terms of growth, right from the beginning, measuring how many students we're working with, how many students we're currently helping, and how many we have helped that's the metric that is the reason why I started this business. And so that's my favorite way for sure to measure growth. And similarly too, having that really, really high quality so that that word of mouth spreads about success or about the quality of the product or whatever it might be is so key. And then when those waves of growth come again, it's the same idea that it can threaten to overwhelm, and the growth will stop in a big hurry if there's so much of it that the quality of what you're putting out there goes down, and your ability to manage it and to not have your team be overwhelmed. So again, having plans in place for when those surges do come is really key to make sure that they'll continue to come.
Again, very interesting, and that's a little bit. We'll tease your secret, but that's a little bit related to your secret. And finally, Michelle, we'll go to the 1v1, starting with Gareth here in a second. But Michelle, I want to give you an opportunity to weigh in on this. So again, what does growth look like for Venture Creative Collective?
For us, I've always followed the mantra that if you do great work, people are going to talk about you, and then you're going to grow. But similarly, if you get overwhelmed and you can't deliver well, especially in this type of digital services that we do, you're affecting people's livelihood and their business. If a site's supposed to be launched on a specific date and you can't make it because you're overwhelmed, that's a problem. So our focus has been very much on predicting the growth and ensuring that we don't get too excited. Even if I could sell more in a month, if I don't have the capacity on my team to do the work really well, then that person will just have to sign up for next month. And that can be a bit hard because as an entrepreneur, it's exciting, right? If someone says, yes, I want to buy your thing, I want to buy it now, who doesn't want to say yes? But that's been a big factor for us in ensuring that we're growing sustainably and that the work we do is good and that people are saying positive things about us.
And it's a common thread then. This must be why you're 40 under 40, because what I'm sensing is everyone has the ability to grow pretty organically. And a big part of your concern is, okay, I've got a new client. Can I deliver and make them like super impressed? So let's go into our secrets now. And we're going to get Gareth first. So Gareth, you're going to talk to us about something it's pretty theoretical, but I like it. It's very intriguing to me. It's convergence and how convergence might help unlock new markets. I think there might be a book in there for you, by the way. But go ahead, Gareth, and tell us about your first secret.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think there's a slide that'll probably pop up that relates to this. But I mean, when I think about growth, I think about change. So growth is basically trying to tap into the change that's already happening in the world, and trying to land on your ledger on the good side of that change, which just happens with time, right? Things change in the world. So convergence is all about how different trends will intersect over time. And for me, this probably the light bulb started going off in university when I was studying philosophy, and there's a dialectic view of history from a philosopher named Hegel, who some people might be familiar with. So I recommend, if you want the background on this, Google Hegel's dialectic view of history, because there's lots of seeds of convergence over the passage of time. But from a practical standpoint, it can be very small. It can be very tactical, like let's make our business on the cloud now. So let's use Google Drive instead of offline documents. That's a very small convergence of like cloud-based technology with business administration. Or it can be really big. It could be let's in our case take this maker movement, this retail movement, and converge it with, we're doing a lot of corporate gifts now. So group gifts, staff gifts, client gifts. And that's a convergence of markets that companies are now looking local too. It's not just retailers who are shopping on Etsy or looking at craft fairs and now finding stores like us. It's also bigger event gifts and corporate gift markets. So it's kind of endless. And you could look at your specific business and say, here's some tactics that we want to upgrade by bringing in new technology. Or you could look at the big picture strategy pieces and look at like revenue streams essentially in new markets that might line up with your own trajectory. Because a big part of this is being ready for that convergence of markets. And you might decide we want to be the early adopter, we want to be first mover in the market. You got to be ready, before the market gets there. You might decide like we're too young to be the first mover. We want to, work on our product or service and watch the market evolve. In that case, set your target and say, we're going to be there 2 years after the first mover. And here's what we expect to happen before then. And here's what we're going to do to be ready for that. So looking for the intersection of these trends, trying to be ready for them, and put your company in the best position when it comes to capacity. In our case, that would be having enough space, having enough staff, having enough inventory, and having our marketing communications messaging aligned with that.
And so in the case of Maker House, I think you are such a great example of this, the maker movement, furniture, retail, social enterprise there, as you mentioned. How did you spot the trends? How did you go, wait a second, there's these big macro forces floating out there in the economy and they're going to converge? How did you spot that?
It's a good question. I guess I took my sweet time getting into launching a business. I worked in other professional fields for 10, 15 years out of school, maybe about 10 years. And so I worked in small companies. I worked in sales and advertising. And then I worked in big companies like Bell Media, TSN. So I got a taste of how business runs. First of all, I mean, that's just a foundational element. I recommend to any entrepreneurs, like work for somebody else and learn lessons working for somebody else. But in my research phase, which was obviously done, outside of work over that 5-10 year stretch before the company launch, and it slowly honed in on. Originally, I just wanted to have a furniture store, and I wanted to get in on that trend of reclaimed wood, solid wood, bringing back quality, locally made furniture. And then I became a big fan of the craft shows and Etsy, which is like the best website for finding locally made goods. So I realized that that was trending. We moved to Ottawa from Toronto, my wife and I, in 2013 from Toronto, where we were seeing the furniture market there. We didn't see the craft market as much beyond like the really big shows, like the One of a Kind show. But in Ottawa, we have a maker epicenter here. So there's tons of industrious makers here doing side hustles, starting up small batch businesses. I think it relates to the government, the foundation of stability here. And it's the same with my relationship. My wife has that stability in her job, so I can go and take risks. And I think that feeds into our maker epicenter here in Ottawa. So I realized as well, researching other stores that sell furniture, I'm like, they don't seem to sell small items, even for your home, like candles and stuff like that. And then I would go to boutiques that sell small items like candles and gifts. And I'm like, they have beautiful furniture showing their products, but it's not for sale. So what's up with that? Why wouldn't you just have a price tag on everything, first of all? So that was one big convergence, was like furniture, homewares, and gifts, candles, smaller things as well. So I guess it's just a matter of keep your antenna up. There's opportunity everywhere. Observe what's happening out there. Take your time to do the research. And I guess in my case, it could almost seem overwhelming because there's like tons of different conversion opportunities. So you really will have to focus at some point. There's that analysis stage, which can be fun. You're in the sandbox playing around with ideas. You have to synthesize at some point and decide, here's my 1, 2, 3 priorities. I'm going to start with those. I've got the other 5 on the back burner for later. And they're projects when you have more capacity to grow.
Well, that's great, Gareth. Thank you for sharing that. So convergent, keep your antenna up, be looking for those macro trends, and then look for, of course, your main point where they're going to converge in that. So thanks very much, Gareth. We're going to move to Heather right now.
Thank you.
And there's almost a transition if people are following along with us. So, Gareth really talked about that initial stage of planning the business and having the foresight of spotting those trends. Heather is going to talk about something that's, I think, really important too. And there's an old axiom that says, work on your business, not work in your business, which is to say that a business owner can fall into the trap of just being, one of the worker bees and getting the work done, and not being, I guess, if I carry on that analogy, the queen bee, and planning and organizing that type of stuff. So let's bring Heather on screen. And Heather, you're going to talk about the need to constantly reassess your business. So, that ability, Gareth was really kind of that foresight before you're launching. You're going to say, okay, well, the business is up and running now, but the business, like any business, might have all sorts of imperfections. So tell us about your idea about the need to constantly reassess the business.
Yes, and it's funny that whole work on your business and not in your business. When I first started, I'd left my position. I didn't have any income, and so I was taking on students, obviously, to tutor myself, because that's what would bring in the most immediate paychecks. And I went it was actually at Invest Ottawa with Peter Stewart, and I had a free coaching session with him. And he said, if there's one thing you take away from this meeting today, it's stop taking on students, even though I understand the temptation because it's an immediate income. Have a very finite number that you work with, and then get that rolling with the plan of having a team of educators that you've trained who start working with these students. And the way he put it, which made it so clear, is he said, you're going to hit that ceiling so quickly and be limited in how many students you're going to be able to help if you continue working with so many of the students. Whereas if you pull back from that and focus instead on working on the business and overseeing and seeing what's happening and adjusting, he said, then there is no ceiling and you can just continue to grow forever. And so that was a huge and very helpful thing that he drove home very early on. And so I have absolutely every single step taken that to heart. So when I'm, as we're growing and as the business grows, it's just constantly checking in with the team members. How are you doing? How's your workload? Has this position started to grow too big for one person? What is bugging you about your role? Is there something that's getting kind of cumbersome or, too many steps? It's not making sense anymore. And there's some different examples on here that I have. Every step of the way, you need to be looking at, is this working now? And just as importantly, is this going to still be working when we reach the next sort of threshold of growth? And you certainly get to that point with your business where you feel like, we've got it. Everything is running like clockwork. It's a well-oiled machine. We've reached that point of perfection with all of our systems. But if you are growing and wanting to grow, you never actually reach that point of perfection because you're constantly needing to do that reassessment and adjust for the growth that's coming.
Yeah, and when I think of this, Heather, it's such a great point that, well, maybe I'll just deal with these one at a time, and we'll take two. I'll throw two questions at you. So at the beginning of a business, you probably as a business owner do need to get your hands dirty. So in your case, you needed to take on and actually do some teaching of the students yourself, probably to experience it, to see how it's going, to say, well, I'm more effective doing this. But there is a balance there, right, Heather? Like at some point you say, okay, I understand this aspect of it. Now I need to pull back, make an investment in some more people to take that over. Is that kind of how it happened with you, Heather?
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be for every aspect, from your bookkeeping to marketing, or all the different hats that someone has to wear when they're first starting up their business. Is as the business is growing, it's too much for one person, and so you start to look and pick which are the things that don't make sense for you to be doing anymore, and which are the things that you can afford to begin offloading onto other individuals. And so that you do have experience doing every single role basically in the business when you're really bootstrapping it. But then working your way down so that you're eventually getting to the point when there's sufficient growth that you really are focusing on those really strong areas of strength and the big picture type roles.
The other point I was going to pick up on that you made so eloquently was that, what gets you growing initially isn't what's going to continue you growing. So, I think of processes, right? You might have said, well, we're going to implement these initial processes to make sure that, students are happy and we're making some progress. But that doesn't mean those processes are going to be the best progresses. And using students, it could be accounting, to your point a minute ago, it could be legal, it could be contracts, it could be a lot of different, could be technology. But you do need at some point to say, processes are likely holding us back. And that sounds like a little bit too nitty gritty, but you really need to think about the business in that type of detail, right, Heather?
Absolutely. And I'd say that at this point now, one of my biggest roles in the business is looking at the nitty gritty, looking at, whether it's the day-to-day operations, because again, some of those processes that served us beautifully earlier are now causing bottlenecks and issues. And so finding ways to readjust for the current stage that the business is in. And again, always that planning for the future stages. So yeah, sometimes you do need to get in there in the little details, because it's amazing how much something that you take for granted is just a small thing. We've always done it that way and it's always worked and it's been great. Now is actually causing a serious hindrance or even, causing some quality issues or things like that.
Neat. So that was great, Heather. Thank you very much. We're going to move to Michelle right now, and there was a little bit of a natural transition. So Gareth was talking about that planning stage and looking to the future, and we just heard Heather talk about looking inside the business and looking into that nitty gritty and trying to identify, what are the bottlenecks and barriers to growth to exist in our company. And we're now going to talk to Michelle. And when I think about Michelle's business, which is, marketing communications, that at some point in operating a business, you're going to say, we need a marketing outreach. We need to be telling people, what we're doing, attracting new customers. And I think it's fair to say, Michelle, that in this digital age, everyone would have, said, well, I understand Facebook. So my business is going to have a Facebook account. And once in a while, we're going to have a Facebook post. And maybe if you're getting a bit more sophisticated, you're going to boost the post. And okay, wow, more people are seeing it now. But there's a lot more to digital marketing. Michelle, you live and breathe this. So you're going to talk to us for the next few minutes about kind of how to take a step beyond that kind of simple, let's do a Facebook post or let's boost it for $10. So take it away, Michelle.
Thank you, Michael. So you're right. Most people at this point have done some basic marketing and they may have had success or they may not have. The thing about that type of marketing is it can be quite unpredictable. And I love numbers, I love predictability, and I love things that, although you can't guarantee anything, I love things that have a really high chance of success. And one of the biggest one of those is rebuy automation. And what that is in the simplest form is reminding people to buy from you. So I'll tell you a story. I have a Great Dane, and actually I have two, and between them they eat 8 pounds of food, yes, pounds, per day. That means that we are going to the pet food store every 4th day. And sometimes we get our schedule a bit off and we run out of food. And then we have to drive all the way to the city because we're in the country. We have to rush, try and find the store, hope that they have the food for both dogs. But it doesn't have to be that way. The place we buy from knows the dogs we have. They know the weight and they know how much we bought. Why are we not getting emails the day before we run out saying, hey, do you want me to put 3 boxes aside for you because you buy every 4th day on the dot? Instead, we have to go to someone else, someone who isn't our preferred supplier, but because they have hours that are open and later and they're not closed on weekends, when we misjudge our schedule for our purchasing, we're forced to choose someone else instead of buying from the company that I want to buy from the most, the one I'm the most loyal to, and the one that I like the most. And so my topic today is how business owners can remind people. And it doesn't just apply to dog food. Things like face cream, snacks, gifts, like birthdays, anniversary, anything that you can predict when your customer is probably going to need more, you should be reminding them. And that's the rebuys.
And when I think of your topic, Michelle, it reminds me, of that saying. It sounds like we're going through all the business sayings now. Is your best customer is your existing customer, right?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
all of us have customers inside our businesses, and we're not potentially serving them correctly. We're not understanding their needs, and your point is, my goodness, if you take a look at I love the dog example, because it's like it's clockwork. Look, this customer's coming in. So imagine if you were looking at a data set or something like that and said, she's in every fourth day. This is one of our best customers. Let's make sure she doesn't spend one penny at another dog food store, right?
Yeah. And for me, like, these are not small purchases. So every time I don't buy there, they're losing, probably, hundreds and hundreds of dollars over the year, if not at least 1,000, because
Wow.
I'm not getting reminded. Even a text message, heck, at that point, call me, right? And so, as you said, your best customers are often the ones that you already have. They've been buying from you for years, they're loyal, but they're also busy. I think a lot of us like to think that we're always on our customers' minds. And I mean, we're pretty great, right? So, of course, they should be thinking about us, but they have businesses to run or families to take care of, whether you're in, depending on who you serve. So sending those type of reminders, I have never gotten someone who said, why are you bugging me? If anything, if they're not interested, not ready, they'll just say that, oh, it'll be about a month and I'll get back to you. Great. And if in a month, in a couple days, they don't get back to us, well, then you remind them again. And in most cases, they buy then. And that's been the same in every industry that we've done this type of work for, whether it's food, plants, because although plants, you don't need to get new ones, although some of us do, but they don't typically die, but they need things like a bigger pot once a year. They need fertilizer during the summer. And so that these people have these items, how big the plant they bought was, propose a bigger pot right when they're going to need it. So.
And Michelle, I think all of us have heard of marketing automation. I hope we
Mhm.
have. It seems a little intimidating, right, to some of us. But give us kind of I love the dog food example. So give us an example from whether it's Facebook or something. What type of marketing automation could you embrace?
So there's two different ways. The first one is manual, and for smaller businesses, ones that are making probably under $100,000 a year, you want to do it manually because it is an investment to set up the automation. So tracking your purchases of the best customers, you could do all your customers, but that would be a lot of time. So those best ones, and then when you need to be contacting them and sending out those emails when you need to do it. That would be the simplest way, and that would be the least techie way. Then you could do it with things like Facebook ads, where you have, again, the data set of who needs to be contacted. But if you're in a lower touch business, so where you're not talking to your clients, you're not emailing them on a regular basis, you can show them ads, specifically ads that are targeted to them based on the fact they've bought before. And that is very effective because they already know, like, and trust you. And so they're more likely to buy again when they see your content. And the third way is my favorite, and it's fully automated. So that system tracks when someone makes the purchase, and then you tell the system when it's being initially set up, and never again after that. It just works itself, how long it will take before someone will run out of that item. And when that date is about to happen, an email goes out to them that's tailored to them based on what they bought. So in, let's say, beauty industry, if it's sunscreen and you know that the bottle lasts 2 months exactly, you'd send them an email at about 7 weeks after purchase to say, hey, Michael, you loved your sunscreen, right? You're probably almost out if you've been using it on schedule. Click here to buy again so that you have more when you're going to need it. And chances are you'll buy.
Would most, so those are examples, and I don't think they're too complicated, Michelle. So thanks for dumbing it down for me. Is this something, and I guess there's an opportunity for you to pitch here. Is this something that a business could turn to an expert like you to do and say, hey, Michelle, I need you to step in this business and identify opportunities for marketing automation? Is that something that would happen in your world on a regular basis?
Absolutely. That's a huge part of the work that we do. We do custom strategy sessions with clients to get to know their business, find those opportunities, and then map out all of the processes. And then they can either take it to someone else, or in almost every case, they have us do the implementation. And after that, it just runs like clockwork, because unless you change your packaging sizes or somehow your product gets used up way quicker all of a sudden, it just keeps working. And I love that type of automation, because you invest up front and then it keeps making you money again and again and again.
Well, it makes so much sense, right? That the repeat nature of the revenue is great. So, listen, this has been great, Michelle. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we heard about the convergence of trends. We heard about looking internally, and now Michelle has helped us identify that we've got some opportunities for some automated marketing, and it's not too complicated. So thank you very much, Michelle. We appreciate you joining us here today. We'll bring Sueling back onto the screen. There you are. How you doing, Sueling?
Very good, thank you.
So we just talked to the 40 under 40. They're always an impressive group, right?
They're always an impressive group, and I want to compliment you on the diversity of the people that you put together and the questions that you asked. And I learned a ton. I've been listening intently, but also shopping online at Maker House Company. And I think that Gareth could probably start a side business, consulting to help people identify those convergent trends. And I thought that was fascinating. And then Heather's story is amazing as well. My daughter is a non-traditional learner, and so I can fully appreciate how the parents of her students are probably so grateful that she's decided to take this entrepreneurship journey. And she mentioned Peter Stewart, and that was heartwarming, as a business coach, because he's an icon in our Ottawa business community. And we got to see firsthand today what his legacy is by helping Heather create such a successful business. And we know that digital marketing and digitization is probably the biggest trend coming out of this pandemic. And so that was a lot of new information that I heard from Michelle today. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch some of those tips that were so valuable. So congratulations on a great panel, Michael. Fantastic.
Good. And I think, to your point, digital marketing has really come to the forefront, right? As public health forced stores bricks and mortar stores to close, all business owners, and this was the hard part, right? Like, they don't have extra time on their hands, and yet they need to become digital marketing experts almost overnight. So listen, we've got our third session all lined up right here. And you're going to be continuing with this practical advice for SMEs. So I'll let you take it away from here, Sueling.
Thank you, Mike, so much. Our next and final speaker is the president of Business Sherpa Group. He is an executive level business leader and HR practitioner with a passion for supporting SMEs to reach peak performance through providing expertise and guidance on back office operations as well as strategic support. With a strong focus on HR and talent-related needs, finance, both operational and strategic, as well as executive-level guidance and coaching. So bringing 20 years of global executive-level experience and knowledge with expertise in talent management, HR leadership, process, and system design, focusing on growing SME businesses, which continue to drive the economy across Canada and to the States. Please welcome the president of Business Sherpa Group, Todd Lucka-Savage. Hello, Todd.
Hi, good morning, Sueling.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here and join this great session.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, and I think we were running a few minutes behind, so I really appreciate you making time for us today.
Not a problem at all.
I know that your practice is very busy these days, but I just want to lay the foundation. So Business Sherpa Group, and Michael and I were saying earlier, we love that name. It's a fantastic name. It's a 13-year-old Ottawa-based company, but you serve clients nationwide, and the majority of your clients are SMEs. So I just wondered, just to lay the foundation, if you can share, what are the services that you provide for SMEs?
Yeah, sure. And you're right. So right now we're about we just peaked over about 170 active clients across Canada. We do a lot of work up north too, as well in Nunavut, but probably about 75 to 80% of our business is with Ottawa-based SMEs. So when I look at our client base, probably about 90% of our clients are under 50 people, under 50 employees. So we really focus all of our solutions and services to the SME market with the intent of really, providing those back office corporate functions to really help them reach peak performance and scale as a business, if that's the intent, or otherwise just support them in finding efficiencies and growth. So for us, our main practices are HR. We do a lot of HR work and HR support for SMEs locally and across Canada. Finance, everything from bookkeeping to controller functions to virtual CFO. We do managed recruitment as well, which is not agency recruitment. It's really a called an RPO, recruitment process outsourcing for small mid-sized enterprise. So allowing them to have a dedicated recruiter when they need it, that gets to know their business. And then, of course, with that, we do executive solutions like governance, business planning, and strategy as well to support that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So really the fundamentals of doing business,
Correct,
for sure. Yeah. And and that's why we're so excited to have you here today, because you have such a broad client base. And I was just curious, what observations have you made with this SME client group over the last 19, 20 months compared to, say, pre-pandemic? What is different now, or what stayed the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing over the last 20 months, if we reflect on, what our clients have gone through, it's pure learning. I don't think any of our SME clients, including ourselves for that matter, had a pandemic recovery plan, in the books or in their policies. So it was a lot of learning, and I think what really changed, what was interesting. I mean, we're really fortunate. Probably, again, 70% at least of our business was already virtual support and solutions. But then you always had that, 25 to 30% of clients that said no, like, we're special, we're different, we need, on-site support. And then lo and behold, the pandemic hits, followed by a lockdown, and it's not an option. So it was quick for us, because of the nature of our business, to move those clients onto support using digitization and automation in all of our practices, for that matter. And it was amazing, the learning, I think, that the clients got out of that. And and it's not only about efficiencies and process automation and being able to work remote. I think for them, it was a lot around the quality, right? The quality of the data, the quality of the reporting, and therefore the quality of the decision making. All from, oftentimes they had to do from their bedroom or basement now, and under these new conditions. So that was interesting, and I mean, it's continued, right? I think and I'm sure we hear a lot about it, and rightfully so, with the Ottawa Board of Trade. The digitization automation piece has been huge, and I think a huge benefit, actually. The days of shoebox accounting and bookkeeping, have really gone by the wayside, and with respect to requiring the level of data and decision making that you need to have. I think the other thing, just from an HR standpoint, HR support for SMEs was very interesting over the last 20 months. I mean, we saw the panic when COVID started around, we need policy for COVID, we need policy for remote, we need policy for all this, and it was all new to everybody, right? And then what made us a bit, not so much nervous, but what we found is there was almost a bit of a dip in SMEs paying attention to HR support and service, almost out of sight, out of mind. Particularly with respect to things like performance management, compensation, learning and development, which are key, right, to ensuring your already now remote employees are engaged. So, I mean, concerning from a business standpoint overall, of how the SMEs will move forward. But then all of a sudden, probably about a year from now, so a year ago, 12 months ago, it was like, okay, this isn't going away, and we've got to be productive and grow as a company. So, all of a sudden the gates were open and people were starting to worry about their employees and want to develop them and, want to manage their performance and, do review their compensation. And so we've seen just such a huge focus now on HR. And part of those, sort of fundamental disciplines that I just mentioned, but also a lot around, obviously engagement, culture, and wellness, which is something, the focus on wellness, very much needed, but something that's really been emphasized by the pandemic versus pre.
Thank you for that. I was going to say that in the first few months, we just thought we would just ride it out, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And then we'd all be back. And I have also seen a shift where people realize not just that it's not going away, but that there are long-term implications that we will continue to have to deal with. And so we need to invest in those. And I really appreciate you talking about, people or SMEs thinking about how they're going to engage employees, but also their wellness. And I mentioned it earlier, but we also feel as though there has to be a strong investment on behalf of all businesses around wellness, because aside from it being the right thing to do, it's a bottom line issue, right? And so we need to create spaces for our greatest asset to be healthy and productive.
Yeah, and one thing, I mean, the owners and the leadership teams of the SMEs, what they can't ignore from a wellness standpoint is themselves.
Yes, that's right.
They're trying obviously hard to grow their business and maintain their business and engage their employees, but they have their own struggles as well in dealing with this, whatever this new normal is. So
right.
There's a lot more coaching and support there as well.
Yeah, self-care, right, for sure.
Yeah.
That idea you can't give from a well, it's dry.
No,
right?
exactly.
So now we are, I don't like to say we're the fight's ended, the fight's not ended, but we're getting, some sight line into post-pandemic priorities. And so what are your SMEs, what are they facing or focused on as we consider post-pandemic goals, short-term or long-term?
I would have to say, if I was to take a survey right now, but just based on conversations with our client base, the biggest challenge right now and focus in terms of strategic priorities is probably workforce planning.
Yes.
Specific to attraction and retention. So not just the recruiting, it's, making sure that they can keep and maintain the talent they have, because it's a different market, right? And we're all talking about supply chain issues, with products, but we've got a huge supply chain issue with talent as well, and it's global. It's not limited to Ottawa, of course. So I think that's probably most top of mind when I pick up the phone and talk to our SME clients. That seems to be sort of the first, oh my gosh, Todd, we can't find anybody. And it's across the board. I mean, everything from, when I look at manufacturing clients or finance services clients, right through to, obviously even tech, engineering, fintech, it's right across. So it's interesting, and it's making workforce planning very different, and enforcing more of an open mind in terms of, are we open to, remote work? I mean, you're starting to see so many more postings now on the various sites that say, location open or remote work accepted. So this is all new, and it creates a lot of uncertainties too. How do we manage people that aren't necessarily working in Ontario, perhaps, right? If we're governed by provincial law, or what happens if we want to hire someone that's not in Canada? I mean, it creates a lot of questions around that, and that I think that's really top of mind, along with, again, going back to, not to sound like a broken record on digitization and automation, but going back to that is, we're seeing a lot more, okay, well, I've got to manage my employees' time on these projects. I need to, integrate my financial systems into my project systems. It's I need an HRIS. There's a lot more focus on automation and digitization and really to find those efficiencies. I mean, the software is out there, as you, as you know. There is more software tools for corporate services than the market can handle. But they work, and you know there's a lot of opportunity for the businesses there, and it's really coaching and walking through the clients on what can help them manage their business. And again, not just from an efficiency standpoint, but from a quality standpoint as well, and giving them the ability to scale, right?
Well, 100%. I just want to go back to sort of labor and workforce development, and what we're seeing too is that no sector is untouched, but also within businesses, it's every level, you know, so leadership roles and mid-management roles and frontline, like that it's kind of all those levels. And just to go back to what you're saying about digitization and the opportunities, it's, you know, it's a time for SMEs to really look at investing in platforms that can support them, because it's not just about finding efficiencies, but it's also about enhancing both an employee and a consumer experience as well. And I know you were able to join us for the Talent Summit when Stephen Harrington was talking about the trends. And it's like, this is an incredible time of opportunity for SMEs as well, because of technology and communications, because they do have the ability to access them, integrate those platforms into their policies almost easier than than larger companies. And so I appreciate you lending your expertise to our business community to support our businesses as you're doing that.
No, it's even for us, Sueling, we in 2018 we made which is a difficult decision for a small mid-sized business to invest heavily in technology. And we budgeted for it and we implemented over an 18-month period, and the rewards are just unbelievable. I mean, just in terms of, what we're able to do right now from a dashboarding standpoint to make decisions. We've gone from a task that took 2 people at month end, 5 days a week, to 1 person at 1.5 days a week.
Incredible.
The payoffs are unbelievable. Yeah.
Incredible. Well, thank you for that real life example too. So last question, Todd, while we're wrapping up, given your massive experience and the clientele that you've worked with over these last few months and looking to the future, what top 3 pieces of advice would you give your SME clients and our viewers today to help position them well for recovery and for growth?
Yeah, I think the first one, again, and which has probably been the theme of our last few minutes, is really value your talent. And it's not just the people that produce at 120% every day. It's those individuals. I mean, if you're familiar with 9box, those people in the top right hand corner that just show so much potential, are engaged with your organization and really share the values of the organization. So, and that's a big thing right now. And we see the market is not going to change for talent my prediction, for what it's worth, is probably within the next 12, 18 months at least.
Okay.
And I also think too is, sell your business. That's the key right now is, it's very dangerous what's happening in terms of, overhead budgets being turned upside down because one employee is coming to, a small business owner and saying, "Oh, I just got a $30,000 increase at company X." And we see that happening. But you can't chase that, right? You can't afford to chase it, nor should you need to chase it. I mean, so we have to look at really what your organization, what your company employees are valuing. What is it about your organization? Is it your values? Is it, your charitable work, your sustainability? The leadership obviously is probably the most important, because that's what drives all that. What is driving people to stay and want to continue to be invested in the organization? Because if 5 people come to you with $20,000 demands, there's nothing you can do. You have to nip it in the bud before that. And so selling the organization, we're seeing that too. I think there was an article in the New York Times last weekend just about, CEOs are the most powerful recruiter for SMEs. Employees want to know from the CEO, from the leadership, what it is, or from the owner, what it is, but is special about working with this organization, and why should I go there, and what's going to make me want to invest in it. So that's important too. And I think the other thing would really be, not to spend a lot of time trying to find normal, right? It's focus on your business, focus on productivity, focus on scaling, because no one knows what normal is right now in business. There's so many different definitions of hybrid and flexible policy and remote hiring and so on and so forth. And how should I treat my employees? Just really find what is working, taking a pulse on your employees to make sure they're engaged and really want to be a part of the organization and the growth that, you want to bring them with you on. And, focus on that because we do find some of our clients are, well, we want to get back to normal. It's we don't know what that is. So, don't invest weeks of meetings in trying to figure that out. So.
Right. Yeah. Embrace ambiguity.
That's right. That's right.
It's an evolving situation, and that is true not just of SMEs, but we meet with nationals and local CEOs of larger companies, and they're in the same position where they're trying to figure out how to capture, but it's really just a process and many conversations right now, and being willing not to be overinvested in any one version, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate what you were saying about, selling your company and what you have to offer. And I think it was really aligned with even your first part about making sure that there's aligned values. So you need to look for a value proposition from your employees, because everybody works differently, right? And everybody has different things to offer, but the values is a big part of it. And then conversely, that's what your employees are looking for as well.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, very good. Well, I appreciate that very concise advice and the insights that you brought to our conversation today, and for investing some time with us. And again, congratulations to the success of Business Sherpa Group under your leadership, and also for how you're helping businesses take it to the next level.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Enjoyed doing it.
And we'll see you again soon.
For sure. Thanks, Sueling.
Very good. Thank you, Todd.
Bye now.
Well, on behalf of the Ottawa Board of Trade and the Ottawa Business Journal, thank you for joining us. We hope that you took away some great insights. I know that I did for sure. We're so grateful to all of our presenters today for sharing their thoughts and insights. And we really want to say thank you to those that make these events possible, which are our sponsors. And today that is the BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada, which is organizing Small Business Week across Canada. And of course, our global event partner for 2021, Oakwood Designers and Builders. In terms of a few housekeeping matters, please be sure to visit ottawabot.ca for more information on our virtual events in 2021, including one of our favorite events of the year, which is our Best Ottawa Business Awards, which you can catch on Rogers 22 and YouTube Live on Thursday, November the 25th. Thank you again for joining us today. I hope that you are well and safe. Please support local where possible, and we'll see you again very soon.